What's up, guys? I kind of didn't want to do this video, but I saw everybody, else here on YouTube giving their views and opinions on it, and a lot of people ask me what are my views on it. And of course, I see these Sony fanboys talking about how the PSP2 just completely blows the 3DS out of the water. But I'm here to bring these Sony fanboys to realization. Now, this isn't just a video for the Sony fanboys. This is also a video to express my views on the PSP2 and the 3DS. So don't think of this as a fanboy video. And I'm just gonna give my prediction on how it's gonna turn out, what's gonna go down, what's gonna happen, and which system I prefer. So let's get started. Right off the back, you guys already know I prefer the 3DS. No, not because I'm a Nintendo fan. I have reasons other than the fact I'm a Nintendo fan why the 3DS appeals to me more than the PSP2. Let's get started. Now, when the PSP2 first got announced, I was excited because I heard that it was quad core, yada yada yada. So I was like, okay, let me check what else this thing has. I didn't find anything. And this comes to my first point. There's no gimmicky selling point to the PSP2. Now, when I say the word gimmick, I know a lot of you are going to say it doesn't need a gimmick. A gimmick is a bad thing. No, people. I don't know why, but this generation of gamers, for some strange reason, they think the word gimmick means something bad, something cheap and just bad. Guys, a gimmick could be something good. For instance, a gimmick for the PS3 could be its Blu-ray. That's considered a gimmick. So a gimmick isn't always, a bad thing, people. It's not a bad word. It's not a negative word. It could be good or bad. A gimmick is just something, that something specific to that handheld or console that's gonna make people want to buy it. That's what a gimmick functions as when it comes to the gaming world. Now, I know a lot of you are gonna say, "Well, Shokyo, the gimmick is the graphics." Graphics, people. If graphics are the gimmick, then obviously Sony hasn't learned anything from competing with all these years with Nintendo for a whole decade. They haven't learned a thing if they think graphics are the gimmick. If graphics can't even be considered a gimmick, would you even consider that a gimmick? And if it is, it's a really bad one. I know some of you are going to say, well, Shokyo, the 3G. You're going to have to pay for that, people. You're going to have to pay for that. Shokyo, the GPS. I actually saw a lot of Sony fanboys talking about, oh, it has a GPS. They listed, Sony fanboys, they like doing lists. They love doing that. And they'll like list GPS in there. What's this for? Oh, I think it's a phone. A smartphone. What do smartphones have? GPSs. So some phones that aren't even smartphones have GPSs. And last time I checked, a cell phone is something you carry around with you at all times. So why do I need to use the GPS on my PSP2 when I could just use the GPS on my phone? Doesn't make much sense, does it? It really doesn't. But that's my first point. There's no uniqueness to it. There's no uniqueness. Moving on. Second point, high development costs. It's going to be high development costs, people. It is, especially compared to the 3DS. Because it's a quad core handheld. They're pumping in a lot of power into the handheld. They got Metal Gear Solid 4 running on the 3DS. On the PSP2. There's going to be high dev costs. Now, there's two problems that are wrong with this one problem. There's two things that are wrong with this. One, it's going to discourage some developers. Again, I said some. I didn't say a lot or most. I said some. It's going to discourage some developers from developing on the PSP2. And secondly, you guys are going to have to pay more for your games. You're going to have to pay more for your games. You're probably going to pay 10 to 15, maybe even 20. That's a stretch, but maybe even 20 more dollars, for your games. 10 to 15 for your games. High development costs. Third point I want to talk about. No backwards compatibility. No backwards. Like I said, Sony hasn't learned a god dang thing. Haven't learned. Now with home consoles, the PS3, it's not as much as big of a deal as it is with the NGP because it's a home console. So you're playing it at home. So if you want to play a PS2 game that badly, you can just bust out your PS2. But this is a handheld. So if you want to play a PSP game as of right now, based on the information Sony has given us, you're going to have to carry around your PSP. If you want to play PSP games. So you're going to have to carry around your PSP, your phone, and your PSP2. Sony. 3DS, fully backwards compatible with all DS games. You can play DS games online. You can do the single card play with DS games. Fully backwards compatible. Awesome. Let's another point I want to talk about. You guys are all excited about the graphics and everything. And I am too. Like, those are really impressive graphics for a handheld. It's awesome. But here's the thing, people. The 3DS has amazing graphics too. All of you people were blown away at the 3DS graphics. It's just that the PSP2 just blew you away more. But that doesn't mean that 3DS graphics are just automatically crap because there's something out there that's better. See what I'm saying? Now, here's the thing, people. Here's the thing. You got 3D. The 3DS could do 3D. 3D just, well, good, let me correct that. Good 3D. 3D done right makes games look better, period. In general. And don't try to sit there and tell me that's bullcrap, Shokyo. Don't say that. Because I know you've seen Avatar in 3D. And that just holds like a whole nother like just layer of, it's like just slapping on a layer of HD, you know what I'm saying? Now, I'm not saying it's going to look that good, Avatar 3D on 3DS, but you guys see where I'm getting at. And don't base 3DS graphics off Nintendogs plus Cats and Kid Icarus Uprising, because those aren't the best 3DS games. Look at the best looking 3DS games compared to the best looking PSP2 games. Look at Resident Evil Revelations. If I'm going to edit this video, I'll show some footage. If not, I'll just post a link to the footage in my description. Look at the textures on those walls. As Jill is walking up the stairs and there's like a lamp on the ceiling swinging back and forth, like the light is going back and forth as well. It's like these are visual effects we haven't even seen on the Wii. The game looks amazing. If you did not know about the 3DS, you would think Resident Evil Revelations was on the 360. You would. And and speaking of the 360, the graphical gap between the NGP and the 3DS, it's kind of like the PS3 and the 360. While the PS3 does look better, most of the time, better effects, better textures and stuff like that. 360 games don't just utterly look like crap. You see what I'm saying? 360 games look good too, just not as good as PS3. So that's kind of like the relationship between the 3DS and the PSP. Now this kind of pours into my another point. Which point is this? I think it's on my fifth point. This kind of pours into my fifth point. The 3DS is going to have more developer support. Now, like I said, since it's higher dev costs, some are going to want to go to the 3DS. But also, when they see the huge user base that's going to be like twice as big, if not more, than the NGP, they see the lower development cost, and they see still great graphics, not as good as PSP2, but they're still able to pull off whatever they want to. You see what I'm saying? Because some developers last generation, they decided to develop for the PSP because, the DS couldn't meet their needs. Some developers had trouble rendering 3D on the DS. You see what I'm saying? You guys know what I'm talking about. You see a character model, the lines are all moving. There's no AA, low resolution textures, stuff like that. But with the 3DS, there's no longer, you can't use graphics as an excuse not to develop for it. So where do you guys think the developer support is going to go? PSP2 or the DS? Bigger user base, lower development costs, still great graphics. Not as good as PSP2, but they're still able to pull off the graphical effects they want to. Where do you think the games are going to go? 3DS. It's just a repeat of last generation, people. The DS had more quality games, more quality, that's quantity and quality, more quality games than the PSP. We all know that. DS utterly kicked the PSP last generation. Moving on to my last point, guys. This might seem hypocritical at first, but let me explain. First, let me say it. You guys are just going to get PS3 games. They're going to take the franchise on the PS3 and they're just going to slap it on the PSP2. That's what it's going to do. That's what Sony does. That's what they did with the PSP. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, well, Shokyo, that's hypocritical. Nintendo takes their franchises and they slap it on the DS. Yes, Nintendo does take their franchises and put it on the DS. But here's the thing. They make the franchise DS specific. They make the game unique to the fact that it's on a handheld. They make the games utilize the DS's uniqueness. You see what I'm saying? For instance, Metroid Prime Hunters. Guys, Metroid has always been about the single player experience. There's only been one Metroid multiplayer game other than Metroid Prime Hunters, which is Metroid Prime 2, which was just an afterthought tacked on multiplayer, which was still decent. But anyways, you guys know Metroid has always been an awesome single player experience. But when they put it on the DS, what did they do? See my point? Exactly. They made it a multiplayer focused experience. A really good one at that. So you see what I'm saying? They took the Metroid franchise, but they made it specific and unique to the DS. Sony doesn't do that. They take their franchise, they slap it on there, remap the controls, bam, done. There you guys go. And you Sony fanboys just take it, you just... You guys gobble that stuff up like it's just a godsend. Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks, unique Zelda experiences unique to the DS. Do you see my point? Exactly. So don't try to sit here and tell me I'm being hypocritical for saying that you guys are just going to be playing PS3 games. Because when it comes to the DS and the Wii, I'm not playing a Wii game. When I play a Mario game on the Wii, it's not the same thing as playing a Mario game on the DS. New Super Mario Bros. Wii was different from New Super Mario Bros. On DS because it had that fun, it had multiplayer. Well, I mean, yeah, you know the Wii one had multiplayer, but it was different. It was a cooperative thing, while the DS had the verses, and then, it had the mini games and stuff like that. You see what I'm saying? But you guys, look at the games already announced for the PSP2. You guys already got a Killzone announced. You already got an Uncharted. You already got a Resistance. That proves my point right there. They're just going to take the franchises on the PSP. On the PS3. Slap PSP2. Gobble. You guys just gobble. You're just going to gobble it up. You guys are going to be playing. To the fact that it's a handheld PS3 is a bad thing, people. Because a handheld is supposed to be a system of its own identity. It's not supposed to be the same system. It's supposed to be a different experience. I don't want to take a PS3 with me on the go. The PS3 experience is meant for the big screen. HD graphics are useless. They do nothing for me on a screen this big. What's the point of HD graphics? On a 4-inch screen? What's the point? What is the point? Beautiful HD graphics, all these particle effects blasting off everywhere, cinematic experience, that's for the big screen. What's the point of experiencing all that on a screen this big, this small? It's no point. No point, people. So hopefully you see now how the NGP is just completely inferior, factually inferior to the 3DS. Now, all the details haven't been announced, but as of right now, you Sony fanboys have nothing to be proud of. It's just a repeat of last generation. The 3DS is going to get more support, more sales than the PSP2. It's just going to be a repeat of last generation. Sony lost. Sony lost before it even started. They lost the war before it even started. And I can legitimately call it. I can call it. I do have the right to call it because I just gave you guys some points that you know good and well you really can't argue with. You guys just going to be playing PS3 games. While I'll be playing an experience that's unique to the DS. And also, a lot of you say, well, it does do 3D with no glasses, but that doesn't do anything for the gameplay. Yes, it does, people. Imagine playing a shooter in 3D. Imagine playing a racing game in 3D. That's going to affect the gameplay. Why? Because you have a greater sense of depth. That's going to affect the gameplay, people. And of course, you got Street Pass. Your 3DS systems communicate with each other by just passing each other up. You got Spot Pass. Your 3DS hooks up to the nearest access point. It updates your system. It updates your games. It sends you the latest news. Kind of like how Steam works. You can take 3D photos, 3D games. Reggie even said you could do 3D video chat. Well, but that feature's not going to be at launch. But he said you could do 3D video chat. And it can even record 3D videos. That is awesome. And of course, it's fully backwards compatible with DS games. You can do single card play, online play with your 3D games. With your DS games on the 3DS. So hopefully now your Sony fanboys have come out to your delusions. Out of your delusions. And that's why I know the 3DS is just going to destroy the NGP when they're both finally released. That's for this video. Look forward to more.